and his rocking hat. If this was the 90s, he would be all that. It's me, my Scotch, and I. 'Cause Obie is the guy. Obie is the guy.
Good evening and welcome to Me, My Scotch, and I. I am Obie Spencer, and we are on the Spanglish Sports World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app from either the iOS or Android App Store. The app is free. Please rate it. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. This show is broadcast on 4 continents and over 35 countries. Of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Before we get started, I wanted to remind everyone that our theme song was recorded by Michael Rochelle of the Shade Tree Mechanics, and point out that they are performing a show tomorrow night, 8 p.m. at the Broadway Bar and Grill in Point Pleasant. Today, we are going to start a 2-part series on one of the things I love most about sports, and that's fantasy football. This week, we get to welcome back Adam Douglas of Fanjecture to discuss fantasy from purely a fantasy player's point of view and perspective. Think of this week as Fantasy 101, and next week we'll move on to Fantasy 201. Adam, how are you today?
I'm glad that I'm here to do the intro to fantasy sports. That doesn't bode well for me and your expectation of how good I am, and you know firsthand exactly how good I am at fantasy sports. So, but I'm thrilled to be back. Thanks for having me.
Oh, like I said, it's a pleasure to have you back. Before you have to tell your tale of fantasy football, I will reveal to everyone watching mine. I started with rotisserie baseball way back in the 90s.
1890s.
1990s. We used to actually, the field of players you were limited to was one league. We actually did just the National League East.
Wow.
And it was not against each other. Your stats were cumulative each week. And our poor commissioner would, every Wednesday, because it was a National League, grab the USA Today, have to add everyone's statistics. If a trade happened, who moved what, subtraction, all by hand, maybe with a calculator, printed it up, and would give it to us in school on Thursday morning. Then I wanted to do the same thing with fantasy football. And the first thing I learned about fantasy football, for everyone out there who doesn't know, is fantasy football is actually head-to-head. You do actually play an opponent each week. Mm-hmm. But the same thing, I had to grab the USA Today. I had to grab it, the late edition on Monday and the late edition on Tuesday to keep track of it.
Wow.
But today, it's all online.
Yeah.
You know what's happening instantaneously, whether you're doing a Dynasty League or DFS, that's Daily Fantasy Sports, or you're in a redraft league. We'll get into all those definitions throughout the show, I promise. And you know, instantly, there's the job of the commissioner is just keeping people happy enough to stay in the league from season to season and collecting and giving out the money. What's your fantasy history? Because I really don't know it.
Wow. Yeah. No. I guess I've never really I've never talked about my fantasy stuff before. As far as like my history, I've been doing it for it's got to be at least over a decade. At least I would say. So maybe 15 years I've been playing. I started out not as early as you. I still started in the tech era of fantasy. Yahoo Sports. When Yahoo was really like the big one. That's where you went to play fantasy. And I was in as many as I could be in. And I'm sure we'll get to how many people are in nowadays, because you and I differ these days, and I can't wait to talk about that. But I was in as many as I could gather up with friends, with family, coworkers, everything. And I mostly it's been fantasy football. I have dabbled a little bit in fantasy baseball. I have dabbled a little bit in fantasy basketball. Neither of those really stuck with me. I really concentrate on fantasy football. I love it. I go in and out with loving it based on the type of league, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But it's been a part of my life for so long, and it's one of those things where like I don't know if I'll ever be able to quit. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever be able to quit. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and when you get in these dynasty leagues, which I know you're in at least one with me,
Mm-hmm.
the guilt about quitting is like you're like it's a lot different than a redraft league when you're like I don't care. So yeah. As you mentioned, I'm in a lot of leagues. I actually cut down on a lot of leagues because of this show and the time it took. So I'm down to I think 4 dynasty leagues, maybe 5.
I'm down to 4. He says.
Yes. Is it 4? It's it's 5. It's 5, which I commissioned one of them. They're all on the same platform. That made my life a little easier. And I do try to keep them all within the same price range because I was in one year where I had one that was really a lot less money. It was a fun league. It was a great league. And then I won, and that was nice. Except winning that league and the effort put in to win that league didn't pay for the other leagues. When I won the league that we were in together, not only did I pay for all the leagues I was in that year, it was able to pay for the next year. And you're like, okay, good. It's all free. So my portfolio right now is 4 or 5. I think it's 5 dynasty leagues, no redraft leagues, and I'm in the daily fantasy league with you and some other folks, and which we all sort of are in and out of on a weekly basis. Am I doing it this week? Am I not?
True, definitely. Yeah, daily fantasy. I know we'll probably touch on this. I know I keep saying we'll eventually touch on it. We will. We'll get to everything. Daily fantasy too. I've started probably I would say within the last 4 years, 3-4 years. Whole nother dynamic of fantasy sports, honestly, and one of the biggest money makers in fantasy sports is daily fantasy sports. It's unbelievable. It's actually a lot of fun. For somebody like me and you who are in dynasty leagues that are like real big commitments, sometimes that fun weekly thing it's actually it sort of is like a de-stressor and still enjoying the thing that you really love.
I think that's great. So let's take a moment to explain the 3 types of leagues the 3 structures of leagues, I would say, they're out there. We've talked about 2 specifically. Dynasty, which is about saving players from seasons on end. There's all different variations of that. Redraft, which is every year you start over. And then daily, which every week you start over. So it's like you never start over. You start over daily, weekly, seasonally, or weekly. So now that I've given a brief outline, you've kind of touched on it. Which ones do you enjoy the most, and how would you describe them in a little more depth than what I just did?
Okay, so I'll rank them. And it's changed over the years, surprisingly. As of today, my least favorite is the yearly redraft. I feel like every time you get another group of friends or another group of coworkers together, like it's always different. It's never the same people. You sort of are grabbing people just to fill up your league. It over the years, it just never felt like concrete for me. Second place for me would be the daily fantasy. Because you're in the one that we do, and it's mostly just family and friends that get together to do it. And like there's no pressure. At least how we do it. We get together, we just have fun. We sort of it's sort of bragging rights. We don't even do it for money. We just do it all for bragging rights to see every week who can pick up the best lineup. So it's a lot of fun for me. And then my number 1 is definitely the Dynasty. I was very hesitant to jump into a Dynasty league when it was first presented to me, but you really get a sense of what it's like to be a GM. And I know that sounds crazy because it's fantasy sports and it's not real sports. I get that. But you really do. And I do find that if your attention to it is not as much as you can put into it, like your results are definitely equal to how much time you put into it. So it's a good balance, but so I think for everybody in a dynasty league, you go up and down, and your time commitment goes up and down. Even that being said, it's still a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend it for people if they can jump into one.
Yeah. So I got to tell you, and with that, I have the league that I commission, which you're not in, but one of our cousins is in with me. But I reached out to some a guy I know from martial arts, which you would think would be one of those places you just have. Okay, and by the way, guys, let's do a side fantasy league, which is exactly what you're talking about. And then two guys quit the martial arts, so they quit the league, and you only one guy, and it's
right.
And he was like, "Oh, tell me about fantasy football." But guy his football is not in the top 5 of his sports when we talk sports.
Uh-huh.
But he decided, sure, I'll do it. So he jumped right into a dynasty salary league, one of our RSO leagues. And he hasn't been competitive. And a few other guys who I know jumped in and like, "Oh, this is year 2 he stayed in." And it's impressive. And now you can already see him building up, and you're like, okay, this is what I got to do. Making better trades and understanding everything there is to understand about dynasty, which is hard to do. And like you said, you're right. You'll have seasons where I have 4 or 5 teams. You have the ability to be like, some seasons I can focus on all of these teams, and you're like, woohoo! And then you have other seasons you're like, if I could just hang on just a little, get another hour in this week, I might stand a chance.
Right. It's funny the way that works too. And I know personally, like I've been slacking a little bit in our league, and it shows, man. I'm like, full disclosure for everyone listening. I'm doing terribly in our dynasty league right now. I'm doing absolutely terribly. But you know what I'm saying? It's a rebuilding league, and to go along with your guy from karate or martial arts, I should say. Sometimes it takes time. You got to build strategy. That's what Dynasty's all about. Like, look, it's not. Sometimes you don't win every year, but sometimes you try to make moves and you plan and you hope those plans. It's Dynasty. It's gonna last forever. So you're trying to think like 3 years ahead, maybe if you're good.
So with that, the league that we're in. And then there's 2 real types of dynasty leagues, and then there's dynasty leagues. You pick a player from the time he's a rookie, you have him until you get rid of him. Mm-hmm. And then there's salary cap leagues where you get a player and he costs so much, and you have to balance out your salary. You have X dollars, and players cost Y dollars. Mm-hmm. And so you have to make choices on how you cut them and move them about, and you can only hold them for so many years. So we're in a league, the one you and I are talking about, where you get a rookie, you have them for 4 years. The max you can have any player for before their salary balloons is 4 years, however that works out. What are some of the strategies you're using to try to manage your team around that salary cap?
Man, that's a good question, because I'm actually I would say one of my weaknesses is salary cap, and not budgeting. I'm usually always like under. The thing that I struggle with for sure is the draft, because you never really know like how much you want to like spend on a player in the draft. And I'm talking about these high, really good profile players that really are going to help your team out. You always imagine, at least I do, I have a spreadsheet usually when we're doing our auction draft, and I'm like, okay, for this position, I really don't want to go above this. And it's really working those numbers over the years to realize, okay, I can spend this much, and maybe I won't have as much later on to spend on the backup players and your bench players, but I'm going to get that really good player. It's a big balance. I've still, we've been in 6 years. I think we've been doing this league now, something like that. And that's a strategy that I'm really trying to like hone down. How much can I do? And I always also try to leave at least some throughout the year so I can pick up some players that nobody drafted and nobody had on their radar. And you want to have enough money later on in this, in like I would say the first 6 weeks, 6 to 7 weeks of the season, where people are starting to pop off, and you want to get them on the waiver wire. You got to pay for those people, so you got to make sure that you have some money left over to get those players that nobody had on their radar.
So that's a very interesting point, that last point, because I can tell you that my strategy ignores that last bit. Like that I do. I go, because my fear is,
yeah,
I don't want to say fear. My thought process is, yes, you might hit on a Phillip Lindsay and you might hit on a James Robinson, but the guys who you miss on when you put that big money into that guy who popped off in week 1 through 4,
right,
is just as bad. So I'm like, I'm not going to take that chance that I'm going to go for that guy for big. Like when Phillip Lindsay comes out, I'll put some money, that if I have some money available in my cap, on him, but I'm not going to make that giant commitment on that player. I usually, and I know you and I share this strategy, that 3rd, 4th round draft picks are we only have 3 rounds in that league, but they're not of value. They're just the guy who's going to go on your team. Right. He's never going to hit, and you're going to have to cut his salary later. While other guys are like, I like those guys. And like, I'll always look for those people, because those are people during the draft are going to trade with me. Because it's obvious that they disagree with me on that. It's not like I'm giving away a secret. That's a strategic choice. Use those late picks or not.
Right. That's so interesting, though. And maybe that's why you've won and I haven't. So is your strategy when we're doing, so for anyone who's watching that doesn't know, we do an auction draft. So a player gets nominated. You don't just automatically pick a player. A player gets nominated, and then everyone starts bidding on those players, and the highest bid wins that player. So your strategy during our auction draft is to walk away with as little money as possible at the end. Like, you just don't care.
I don't care. It's not my, like, so like you, I have players and I have them in tiers. So the wide receivers that are available are, I'll spend this much. Like, I can tell you right now that Tyreek Hill is the highest guy I'm willing to pay money for this year. And I also have how many years. So like, I might be willing to spend more money on a guy for less years, and if I get him, great. And then I have it by position. Like, if I haven't filled it with one of these other guys, I'm going to need a guy. So I'll need a running back who I can get for $500,000 for $5 million a year. And then I have so many spots where I know I'm at the, like, I'm always one of the last guys drafting, because I'm just nominating players. And when I fill the roster with those guys, whoever they are at that position. So if I have, let's say, $50 million a year set aside for Tyreek Hill, and then instead I get some $20 million a year running wide receiver, and I just can't fill like the top running back that I'm willing to pay for. Like, if that money's left, I'm not going to use it to get some. Like, if I'm not going to use that money to get a guy outside of the range I've priced them at necessarily.
Right.
But I'm not. But when I set my budget, I can max out, and I'm not worried about, am I going to max out? Some years I have money left over, some years I don't. Last year, I think I had a lot of money left over because there's always one player in our, always one guy who somehow nobody realizes what the name of the guy was, or they're just like the guys who have money set aside or need to save it for the wire. And some guys just gets through. And, I got Green Bay's running back last year at a ridiculously low price for 2 years. And I was like, oh, and that saved me. Then I had money left over last year, so I know I got Scotty Miller. When Scotty Miller had his big week, I was like, well, let me go put a little more than I usually would on Scotty Miller. I never used him all season and probably missed all his good games. But, yeah. Right. So, yeah, there's no budget for left over for me.
Right. Yeah, maybe I'll try to employ that this year. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough for me because I feel like personally, I feel like I always maybe cut myself too short for the tier one players. Because I'm always like, man, that seems too rich. Like it seems like way too much money to spend. And I always get nervous that I'm just not gonna have enough money left over to fill my roster. It's tough. It's stressful, guys. It's stressful doing these auctions. It's super stressful than just doing a snake draft. So much more.
Yes, yes. And we have in that league, let's throw it in there, we have IDP. So first, let's just talk about the different defensive strategies and which ones you like. So our league has IDP. That means you pick individual defensive players.
Yep.
There's general defenses, and then there's kickers. Talk to me about those kind of things.
Kickers are pointless. And not because I think that kickers in NFL are pointless. Strictly fantasy. If you honestly just if you're a fantasy fan, do yourself a favor, look at the stats of kickers. There's like a negligible difference between the top kicker and like the 20th kicker. So when there's no discernible difference, just get rid of them. You don't need them. Like, who cares? Like, it doesn't even matter. I personally, I love IDP. I'm a big defense fan. So I love being able to pick players that are actually like real players, not just a whole team. Like I want to get those stats. I want to get tackles. I want to get sacks. I want to get interceptions. I want to like really get to know all the players, and I love it. I'm so glad that our league does that.
And I looked. By the way, we started our league in 2013, and just so I don't mess it up.
Did we really? Oh my god.
Yeah. I am currently have 5 teams, so I just double checked all that information. But we started in 2013.
Wow.
I know you. I believe it was you. You early on put a lot of money into IDP, and you had Watt. And you had Watt the year that he was scoring from. He should have won the MVP. He was the most dominant defensive player.
Yep.
And he was scoring touchdowns on offense. He was just ridiculous. So that year, it probably paid off a little bit for you.
You know what, too? The first like 2 or 3 years that we got into the league, I actually, I'll echo that. I played a lot of money into IDP, and if you remember, I didn't win, but I made the playoffs every year. I think I got to the quarterfinals, the first out of the 3 years. It really did pay off. And now I had JJ Watt, so he sort of carried the defense on my team, on his back. But if you have a team, if your league is set up so that it's offense and defense, you can't just sleep on the defense. You gotta actually put money into that, because if you're not, I guarantee other people are.
So, and if you look in our league, there are at least 3 guys who totally disagree with you.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And they stream defensive players. Streaming means you drop one guy and just pick up another guy.
Yep.
As somebody who does that, there is a huge problem with that strategy that I encounter every season. And that is the defensive guys I'm streaming, their salary is whatever their salary is, and you just replace them and you move forward. But eventually you end up with some really good defensive players.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to a week that they're on a bye, and now you have to figure out how to replace them. Now, had you just gone in and said, I know that J.J. Watt's going to be good and Aaron Donald's going to be good, and I'm going to put that money on those guys, you don't run into that problem, which is which if you go with a regular defense, just the whole team, you only run that problem once or twice a season and you live with it.
Mm-hmm.
IDP, though, it does make a difference. And the year I came in second, I know the guy who came in first is a big IDP guy like you. He'll put his money there. And his defense was the true difference maker because he had guaranteed good guys at defense.
Right.
You brought up an interesting point about the differences in kickers. Another position where there's very little difference, and it does matter, unfortunately, is quarterback.
Mm.
And the difference is in the NFL, the team with the best kicker isn't usually the best team in the NFL. It's usually the best kicker as a result of the fact that his team's always scoring or inside the red zone. What have you seen in your various fantasy leagues as ways to make the quarterback position more important in fantasy?
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because I would say you can definitely say that there's maybe like 3 tier 1 quarterbacks, right? Every like it varies every year, but the top 3 are usually the big numbers guys. And if you don't have one of those 3, good luck at that position. Because when you get to like 4 through 10, they're probably all gonna balance out a little bit. Uh, what really comes into play, I find with quarterback for sure, is who's your backup quarterback. Now, there's 32 teams in the league, which means there's more than 10 really good quarterbacks in this league. And you got to really find a good compare or pair of quarterbacks. Quarterbacks in this league, I find it's not just about one. You have to have 2 good quarterbacks. Don't always, unless you have one of those top 3, don't rely necessarily on just playing that one quarterback every week, every week. Quarterback is really about matchup, I think. And I think it's okay to flip flop as long as your backup is, if you drafted well or you auctioned well, as long as you have a good number 2, I think it's okay to flip flop depending on the matchup. That's what I found.
Okay, so let's have, as you know, but then we don't know who's watching. In our league, we have our draft, which you've talked about the auction. Rookies are drafted in the fantasy dynasty league, and they're not drafted in a snake draft for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which a lot of redraft leagues are. It's drafted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the worst team in theory gets the best pick each round. I grabbed one Trevor Lawrence relatively early in our draft. Most of the bigger names were in the offensive positions were already off the board. I know how our commissioner thinks, and I made a joke about, I waited all day to draft, and then I drafted a quarterback. How horrible can this guy is this guy's draft? What was your impression of that pick this year, given that it was Trevor Lawrence, and maybe he will be the next big scorer, but nobody's really good at predicting that in the NFL.
Okay, refresh me. Is he your only quarterback?
He is not my only quarterback. He's actually, and the other thing is he becomes my 3rd quarterback in that league. I think it's Goff and Tannehill, 2 guys who go right into what your strategy you were talking about, look at the matchup. And then I grabbed Lawrence as well. Maybe I'll have a quarterback I can start every week if I grab this guy.
So I'll be honest. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a better pick than Goff. I think Trevor Lawrence might actually be your number 2, all said and done. I think Tannehill is a solid pick. Well, you already had him. I think Tannehill and Lawrence are pretty equal. I think they're in that like top 15, like mid tier. So they're definitely matchup plays. It's not like Mahomes or Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson. Like those are, you start those unless the matchup is terrible kind of people. So you're going to really, narrow down and do the analytics and look at the stats and decide which one is the best play this week. I like the pick. I don't think it's bad at all. I think sometimes you get those rookies and they're gonna surprise everyone. I think Trevor Lawrence actually is gonna do pretty decent this year.
Excellent. Thank you for the pat on the back.
Yeah, no problem.
We're looking at you, Commissioner. So let's talk about my favorite thing about Dynasty football. The reason I got into Dynasty football and away from the redraft leagues. You make a great point. Most of your redraft leagues are this group of friends, that group of coworkers, which is important because in our age, those group of friends you're in change rapidly. Like you're like, wait, what happened to so and so?
Our age, come on.
Sorry, you're 6 years younger than me, but you've reached our age level.
Oh no.
Yeah. So
right.
When you have kids, your friends group change rapidly because your friend group, you start off with your older child's friends, parents, and then she gets new friends, and then you're not that, but you're young, and you're just like, wait, what happened? Right. So Dynasty so fantasy football had become a way of keeping those sort of friend groups and those friendships alive. Same thing with at work. But the mechanisms of trades during the season, it was really hard to trade because you literally had to be like, I have 3 running backs and I can get rid of one, and you have 3 wide receivers and you can get rid of one. And that's the only way you could find a deal. Like, you really had to find the one team that had the one player in position and overabundance with which you can make a trade and hope that they can give you something. Dynasty is so much better for trades because you are just looking at your team going, that guy's team sucks, but he's got a gem. Or I need a backup. I have a starter. I don't have a starter, but I have this other valuable thing called a draft pick. So the mechanisms for trading, in addition to people having different strategies of what they value with IDP and you do 1 quarterback, 2 quarterbacks, are so much better that it brings in real world skills of negotiations. So when you're looking to make a trade or you're going, there's nobody on the waiver wire to fill this role, what goes in it for you?
Okay, so this is I was waiting all night for you to ask me about trades, and I gotta be honest, and I'm sure if anyone from our league is watching, they're going to agree with me. I'm hands down. I if there was a vote in our league for the worst person to trade with, it would be me. And the reason for that is probably the opposite of what you're saying, and I'm sure some fantasy fans out there are probably going to feel how I feel. Is that I'm loyal to a fault for these imaginary players that I have. And the idea that I drafted or auctioned off, I bought these players for a reason in my head. And I'm like thinking, okay, I very well might impose too high a value for the players that may or may not be doing well on myself because there was a specific reason why I got these people, and so I'm really bad at trades, and I get a lot of trade offers a lot, and I counter a lot, and I actually barely do any trades, and I feel like that is a hindrance for me. I think if there's one area of my game that is lacking is my ability to actually be a good negotiator and negotiate a very good trade. It's definitely a skill, and I see a lot of trades going on in our league, and sometimes honestly, I'll look at the trades and I'll be like, really? Like, you traded that for that? And it's a skill I'm trying to work with, and I think it's super important. I think the ability to trade your players is super important. It's a skill. It honestly is a skill, and I'm still working on that skill.
Yes. And so I follow a few forums on trades, and I found some trade calculator tools. And I find, so people on the forum get angry at the trade calculator tools because they're like, that trade calculator tool values players incorrectly. And I get that. But I find that it's useful because it makes me reevaluate my valuation of a player. And so, like you said, I grab so-and-so to be my number 1 wide receiver. If I trade him so I can get a number 2, a flex player, and then this guy becomes my 1 and this guy becomes my 2, my team's probably better, but this isn't a number 1. This guy isn't a number 1, but my team's better. And so you run into that, and then you go to the trade calculator, and the trade calculator goes, no, that's a fair trade. And you're going, I guess I've overvalued it. Now, I can tell you, did I finally get rid of Nuck in that league? It may have finally happened. I've had him since he was a rookie.
Like, you've had him since you were doing rotisserie baseball.
Yes. 2 or 3 years in a row, he had slow starts, and I was trying to trade him, but would not trade him at a low value. And people did not accept my offers, and I was always, at the end of the year, I was always like, okay, I judged him right. Because I was where you were. I'm like, this is my number 1 receiver, right? Like, that's how I valued him. On the other hand, I got rid of OBJ in a couple of leagues because I'm like, oops, I've overvalued him, and now I can't even give him away in some leagues, the leagues I still have him in, because you spent a lot of money on him.
Right.
Or I did, at least, when I was drafting him. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. So like I was involved in a trade negotiation earlier for this season. And it started with somebody. I'm not gonna say the team. I'll be a little bit vague on the specific players, but I'll give the generalization. It was somebody wanted my backup, my quote unquote backup tight end. Now I've always valued tight ends very well in my team for my entire history. I've actually been very good with my tight ends. I have 2 tight ends. I have one starter who was injured a lot, but he's on the rebound, and I have another really good tight end in Tyler Higbee. And someone was trying to get Tyler Higbee, and I said, okay. I really want to keep him because I like having 2 tight ends, especially for a flex spot. So I really enjoy the tight end spot. Somebody was trying to offer me a unproven but starting running back, not a rookie, but unproven, and they wanted that for Higbee and a first-round draft pick. And I said to myself, that just doesn't seem like a good value. Right. So, and we were negotiating back and forth, and then it turns out he ditched my negotiation and went to another team and made a deal to get another player and to get this running back off his team, and got the pick that he wanted. And I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe somebody gave a high draft pick for an unproven running back. So I think sometimes I get in my own head, like maybe I should have just given away my draft pick for this running back, for a backup tight end that I may or may not end up using throughout the year. It's tough. And I feel like sometimes it's the downfall of my team, of my negotiations, and my values.
It is always tough. And one of the things that's tough here is we have, you were here before and we did a fashion scorecard, but now we do something tougher and we do little games.
Oh, okay.
So now I've got you scared, but the reality is these games are not meant to be hard. They're meant to spur conversation. We've been talking fantasy football, but anyone who knows who you are on the internet knows you're from Fanjecture. You're a movie guy. So we're going to talk a little bit about fantasy movies. Now, I know that your socks, at least for a long period of time, have all been Harry Potter socks for you and your family. So we're going to play Potter or Notter.
Oh, no. Okay.
So I'm going to give you the character. And we got to go in. You're going to tell me if they're Potter or Notter. So we're going to start with the lazy.
Okay. Notter.
All right. Let's go. Next picture. Find out.
No.
Harry Potter. So he's a Slytherin. He's got full palm wit. And he's ripped. Do you remember him at all?
No, I don't.
Oh boy.
I know.
Okay. Let's see who's next. Dolores, Ed to that.
I feel like I think you just made up all of these. I'm gonna go Notter.
Was that Potter or Notter?
Notter.
Let's find out. You know, I watched the first episode I'm not going to watch this. It's too much for my wife, a child or near death. And you can be like 4 weeks in, And you're like, oh no, dude, you got like episode 3. I remember you doing that around season 6. I started watching it and got myself to episode 3 or 4. And I was like, it's good. But yeah, it was tough to begin. Rebecca, are you on mute? Possibly, because that might work. This echoing. But bring us the next. Remil the Game.
Remilda Vein. I'm gonna go Nodder.
Let's find out.
Chocolate. All right. These are some random characters.
I do apologize. I'm not trying to make it completely. I was hoping you get one of them. And wait, you got one.
Hey.
Of the 3. Let's see what we got next. Now remember, Scotch you can go on TikTok, @me_mine, Scotch, _I, YouTube @me_Scotch9. Now on YouTube, not only do you get full episodes and partial episodes like the games and sections, but now we're going to have Ricky from the Waterloo podcast with Ed and Obi. Rogers about you know Ed has got a big Rutgers helmet and back. And we're going to talk about our basically grumpy old men dream. All right, let's call it quit because the echo is a little too much. Remember you Bang the Sports World Radio Network. You can find it on Bang World. Spanish Sports World. Hear it, read it, download it, live it. So Rebecca, we're going to stop with the pictures and return a little bit.
I was getting hotter.
You were getting.
I was right now.
Oh yes. He did kill the dragon. That was a big mistake.
I do like how Game of Thrones and Harry Potter are like the two because they're very similar in names.
Well, that was the one thing I did do. I tried to find the Nodder that had names that sounded like Potters. So let's go to the next picture.
Potter.
Oh,
I think.
Yes. Did you remember him?
Yes, I did.
And what do you remember about him?
He was that kid. I don't know. I remember the name. Look, you caught me off guard because I like Harry Potter, but it's through osmosis of my wife, who is like a huge Harry Potter fan. I really like movies a lot. She's a huge fan, though.
All right, let's get the last one.
Oh, Nodder?
Let's see. Nodder.
Okay.
So this is a really small role over there. Basically, he's there to remind everyone how elves and dwarves like each other. But I love this game because it's all there, old Hodor, and Hagrid. So I figured you get something to represent Hodor and Hagrid. And that definitely brings after this. And okay, let's.
You know why I picked Nodder on that one? Because I with the exception of Hagrid, I don't, and maybe Dumbledore, but he's got a full name. Not many Harry Potter characters are just one name. So I was playing the odds on that one.
Well, that was well done. Well done. Let's head to the drinking section because that was a little rough on the ears.
Oh boy.
So
what are we doing?
We're going to start off with the Peat Monster, which you didn't get to see the actual cover of this because I just delivered you a small sampling.
Yes. Which, by the way, I don't want to, let the people at home know behind the scenes, but I was a little worried when I got this about what might have been in this.
Those are fresh and clean and have not been used for anything else, just bought from the dollar store.
No samples. No
no
samples.
No. Okay. I'm going to take a look at that. That is very clear and light.
Okay.
How would you say that smells?
Like turpentine.
Turpentine. You don't smell smoky leather?
Okay, maybe. Leather. Okay.
And they say banana. I'm not smelling that.
No banana.
All right, let's taste this against the palate.
I like that.
Yeah. It's nothing like we have two very peaty smoky scotches today. And
I taste the leather, I think. I feel like I taste your descriptions better than the smell of it.
Yeah, because when you're not used to a peaty scotch, that burnt smoky smell is overwhelming. And like you said, you were afraid of what that was going to taste like, and meanwhile, it has this nice, long, sweet, smoky finish, very earthy.
Yeah,
much better than what the smell was.
Yeah, no, actually, that was actually pretty good. That went down pretty smooth. I like that one.
So now let's go to the apologies to the people who live in Scotland in Cragabus if I said it wrong, but this is a Cragabus Islay blended malt Scotch whiskey. So I chose this one special for you. I was going to choose a different one, but I got this from Vegas, but that's not the important thing. I opened this during Charlie's first family game night. And so this is for him. Again, very clear, almost no color.
Yeah, this is very clear. Yeah, I almost thought it was water when I poured it in.
Yeah. Not when you smell it, though.
No.
It's not as strong or as musty.
Right.
Almost cut green grass.
You're just making this stuff up now. Come on. I smell elderberries and an aged book, 50 years. Definitely.
75 years. Be honest with the people watching. No, I don't smell wet paper.
I think I like the first one better.
First one had more flavor. This one is almost as flavorless as it's colorless. It's very disappointing.
And you have a whole bottle to drink. I bet that tastes great with Coke.
Nah, well, both of them I think we can put into the Me, My Scotch, and I house blend. We'll put a little bit of each of them in there. Give it some aroma.
I'm sorry. The what? The what now?
The Me, My Scotch, and I house blend. So when something is good enough, or really just not bad, we pour a little into this decanter. That's not the right word, but that's what we're going to go with. And you get your own mix over time. And every now and again, I'm.
Do you drink from that?
I have to because it gets full. But the plan is that someday, and it's going to happen sooner than later as our pandemic ends,
Yeah.
those folks who live close enough, like you, will come to the studio, and this will be one of the things we drink.
Okay. I can't wait for that night.
Either can I. Either can I. So, what else do you have going on besides fantasy football and your wife and learning through osmosis about Harry Potter from your wife?
Yeah, just I have a YouTube channel called Fanjecture, Fanjecture, just spelled like it sound. And I do, I mostly talk movies over there. The big show that we do Wednesday nights, we do a movie debate show. Last week we just did the best Harrison Ford movies. This upcoming week, we're doing the best Nicolas Cage movies, which is going to be very exciting. A lot of 90s, talked a lot of 90s tonight, but a lot of 90s classics in there. The Rock, we got National Treasure in there. A bunch of good Nicolas Cage movies. So that's what I do. Talk movies a lot every week.
Did Ghost Rider make the top 8?
Ghost Rider did make the top 8. It did. Gone in 60 Seconds made the top 8. A lot of I don't have the list on me now. I should have prepared a little bit better, but a lot of good Nick Cage movies. All the ones that you think would be on there is going to be on there.
Well, there's that to me it feels like there's I'll give my votes now. There's 2 Nick Cage movies that stand above.
Okay.
And that's Raising Arizona and was it Moonlight? The one with Cher.
Moonstruck.
Neither
of those made the list.
I'm showing my age.
A lot of people in the because in the community we do a lot of pre-voting for people to come in, and a lot of people were doing it. So here's the list. I'll give it real quick, super quick. National Treasure, The Rock, Con Air, National Treasure 2, Face Off. Forgot about Face Off, Travolta. Gone in 60 Seconds, Kick-Ass, and Ghost Rider. Those are the ones we're talking about this week.
Okay. There was one in there. Oh, National Treasure 2.
Yeah.
That's impressive to have made the list over the 2 that I suggested, which does show that you have a younger crowd.
Look, I agree. I'm with you over that. I thought actually, even though the 2 you said, Leaving Las Vegas, I thought should have made the list. But hey, the people want what they want, Obi.
This is the thing about Nick Cage. He has such a large array of movies, that and he's been doing it for so long that it's like, and I'm sure that as it's a YouTube channel, there is skews a little younger than yourself. I suspect your audience is a little younger than you.
A little bit. Not too much, but a little bit. Yes.
Excellent. So we have a few moments left, and I have one fantasy football question for you. This will be a quick, short one. Have you looked over our league, and who do you think is going to win it this year? And just say me, so I feel good about myself.
You probably. I'm tanking this year on purpose. I can't wait. I'm going to draft all the worst players in the world, and I want to come in last place so I can get the number 1 draft pick next year.
Which will be, we don't know.
Probably a terrible player. Hashtag don't trust the process.
Oh, the process. Yes. Once again, this was the year until the knee just went.
Oh my God. We could talk an hour about that another day. Oh my God.
Yeah, it is. It's, for those who don't know, I'm not from the Philly area, but I live there now. After 20 years, it's all I've gotten into 3 of the 4 big sports. 3 of the 4 big 4. I now root for the home team. Most importantly, I started and came down as a Sixer fan, and
this was the year, Obi. This was the year, and
I was like, I'm going to a parade in my hometown. I was excited. I was going to call it my hometown and everything, but yeah. So with that, I just want to remind everyone that next week we will continue this Fantasy Football 201 with fantasy football writer Tyler Butcher. He's going to take some of these strategies and things we talked about to that next level, probably dig into some numbers. I continue to search for my bottle of Ron Burgundy's Great Odin's Raven Special Reserve Scotch whiskey. After we track that down, because it seems to be a lot harder than I expected, then I'm going to try to track down the guest, Will Ferrell, and interview him about some of his great sports movies, including Blades of Steel. With that, I thank you all for watching tonight. See you next week.
It's a show with Obi and his rocking hat. If this was the 90s, he would be all that. It's me, my Scotch, and I. 'Cause Obi is the guy. Obi is the guy.